So it's Valentine's Day. Exciting, right? Well, maybe.
For some, yes.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those things, isn't it, where we have the opportunity to celebrate love or, the fantasy of love and that sort of thing, but
Mm.
it's not necessarily the thing that does it for us all, does it?
No, that's true. It's like it can be a bit of a trumped up opportunity to try and set things right in a way. It's like, oh, this could be the line in the sand for us to actually move forward from. And so I'm going to go and grab a bunch of flowers and I might even spend a fair bit on them and nick home and present them to my partner
Mm.
in the hopes that, maybe we can kind of move forward and
Yeah.
set sail in a true direction.
Yeah,
But
absolutely. Or, us girls, we like to write little love notes and put, rose petals around, which I think is probably super annoying to you. If I did that, that'd be, you probably wouldn't really like. But the thing is that, Valentine's Day, it's dedicated to love, isn't it? And connection. So there's a lot of buy-in to what it's about and how it's supposed to be helpful to the relationship or finding a relationship for those who are doing the, be my Valentine thing. But it's just one of those moments, like any celebration, a birthday, a Christmas. I'm not so sure about Easter time, but hey, who knows? But when there's the opportunity for gift giving or some sort of over the top normal, it breaks us out of the status quo. And in a way, we're hoping that this will be a salve for the mundaneness of a relationship, or if there seems to be a sense of, oh, I need to repair this because I did something wrong. And I don't think that that's the most functional way that we could be living life. Because, yeah, it's all well and good to receive a Valentine's gift or some sort of a recognition for that, but why not feel like it's Valentine's Day every day?
which sounds that's crazy. I couldn't maintain it.
Yeah, well,
That sort of state for every day in, day out sort of thing.
and that's true. I mean, you wouldn't really sustain giving presents every day.
But it's a good point that you're making is that what is it that we actually do on Valentine's Day and what's behind what we're doing? Where are we coming from? What are we looking to create? And why can't we have our relationship the way we'd love it to be and show up in that relationship the way we'd love to show up every day and not have to have the oscillation of the highs of Valentine's Day and then have it swing to somewhere else that's less desirable in whatever way.
Yeah.
And then swing back again when the next thing comes around where we get to celebrate how we feel for each other and our relationship together.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important point because there's a lot of relationships that revolve around the swing, and I'm not talking about swingers and upside down pineapples and that stuff. I'm talking about how we get on a path and we think, oh, this is really good now. We're all good. Everything's moving forward fantastically. We start to get a little bit busy in life and things erode, or we say the wrong thing, or we perceive we've got the wrong look coming our direction or whatever. And then it feels like it erodes. And as you say, we've got to do something. We do something to try and appease or fix or whatever. And then that everything feels okay for a little while again until the cycle repeats. And that's really classic in a lot of relationships, isn't it?
It is, yeah. And often the reason behind that is that we find ourselves in a dynamic, in a like an orientation. We find ourselves orientating toward our relationship and the other person in our relationship in a certain way, but it is unconscious. We don't actually know where we're coming from at any given time. And so we feel that it's important to understand the dynamic that is that creates the oscillation and the swing we're on, and then we're off again or whatever. And it's about, am I in the orientation of reactivity in this situation, in my life, in my relationship, or am I coming from the orientation of authenticity? Am I actually my showing up as in my authentic self? Who I actually am, who I really am. What in the the guy or the girl who has aspirations in life, who loves things about life and about the world that may be different to their partner. You know, it may differ as a perspective, as an interest, as a love in life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Am I bringing that to the table, regardless of the fact that it may not be exactly the same as what the other person's interested in? You know?
Yeah, that's right. And I think to broaden the definition of reactivity too is really important, because reactivity for most of us, it's like, let's say, for example, you say something to me and I internalize that in some way. I interpret that and then I'm like, rah, back, or withdrawing or whatever. But it's not always that, that sort of toing and froing in the exact moment. Often the time that we're in our reactive mode, we're reactively living in the way that we think we need to keep the peace, don't we? So day in and day out, rather than just being a moment in time and letting it go, we end up going, oh yeah, but if I speak too loud or I'm too much, then he or she won't like what's going on, and then I'll get shut down or called out or whatever. So even though we call it reactive, which is usually a fast and quick time span in the nervous system, it can be ongoing, but that's a reactive nature. You're reacting to a perception that you will have some sort of negative consequence out of it, and you can do it in a sustainable way. But when we're in the other orientation, which is that authenticness that you talk about, that doesn't exist. You establish who you are and you source what you need from within, and your partner is this beautiful extra in life that you get to travel alongside. And that's not only more peaceful, but it's more peaceful in a highly functional way, because you're being the person that you want to be. You're expressing your gifts, talents, and what you love, and then every day does feel like a Valentine's Day. And you can make that day a little special, but just because it's fun to, not because it's a salve to a problem that's been existing in the relationship due to the reactive natures that either or both of you have been in over the period of time in the lead up to that.
Yeah, and you know, we find ourselves in this like playing in this area without knowing how we even got there, or half the time that we are there. But it's often because what draws us to get together in the first place in our relationship are the things that we're both interested in, you know, and the shared interests, the commonalities, the stuff that sort of attracts us initially together. But then it's the differences that create the polarity in our relationship, and polarity creates passion and desire and fosters that in the relationship as well. And so when we inadvertently smooth things out and continually control our behavior, and then it leaks into our interests. Oh, that's not so important. You know, it's not worth the other person being put out, because I really do love doing that, but I'll let that go for now, is what we tell ourselves. And years go by and that thing's been shelved, or those things have often been shelved for a very long time. And it's those sorts of things that are the contrast in our relationship, and they're the true essence sort of things of us and what we're interested in life. And so without them, things do become smooth, and we have kind of managed our own behavior and our own way of showing up so that it just keeps the peace. But man, it becomes very vanilla over time. And then we find that we arrive at this place where, how do we even get here? You know, things are plain Jane and it's not fun anymore. Where's the spice gone? You know, we used to love stuff and have a lot of playful sort of energy in the relationship, and it was fun. But you know, something's missing.
Yeah, that's right. Well, the path of least resistance without being conscious is to become homogenous.
Yeah.
To like the same things, talk about the same things, get involved in the same things. And hey, look, we are very aware that we do a lot of things together. Like we have our business together, we play pickleball together, and you know, there's certain things that we like to watch together and all those sorts of things. But there's also differences. So for example, if I go out, I know one of the first things that's going to happen. old mate here is going to put on Netflix and watch something he really wants to watch, you know. Now, I'm not here. I'm not watching it because I actually I have no interest in those sorts of shows and movies and that sort of stuff. But also knowing that he's getting to, and I don't mean getting to because he has permission, but he has those opportunities to really immerse himself in those types of things that he loves and watch those performances in that way. You know, that's exciting, you know, to know that you're doing that. Or, you know, it might be something more dynamic, like when you go off and do a, you know, you've done it for a little while, but a big hike or something like that. And, you know, it's like, that's cool to know that you're out there doing what you love. And I would hope that it's the same the other way around as well. You know, I'm not trying to think of what I was doing recently, but you know, sometimes I'll just come in here and I'll just start painting, and it'll you know, the time just disappears in that time. And Craig's not knocking on the door every 5 minutes. Hey, how are you going? What are you doing? Can I paint with you? And all that sort of stuff. It's all, you know, we've got our things, and we very much honor that in each other, and we love that about each other. And I think that's probably one of the key things that keeps, you know, the relationship feeling like it does on a day-to-day basis. So today when we went out and had a little celebration coffee for Valentine's Day, well, it really wasn't that. We were going to go and do it, and then we remembered it was Valentine's Day, so we made it about that. And it was a bit fun, you know, so it made also something that we do regularly a little bit different, and gave it another flavour. So that's a functional way to take something like today being Valentine's Day and turn it into something, augmenting to something that's already good, not a fix for something that may be a little bit up, down, roller coaster, pendulum swinging, oscillating structure of relationship. And would you agree that probably the biggest dynamic this shows up in is a codependent relationship?
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, it's you know, the essence of that codependent relationship being that I need you to need me. And, you know, when that's the most common dynamic that people in relationships find themselves eventually in.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Well, even at the beginning, because culturally, especially here in Australia, and I think America, UK, anywhere in the Western world particularly, we've been culturally, for want of a better word, programmed that codependent relationship is where it's at. It's that needing each other in needy ways, because almost every show that you see is about, oh, he did this, therefore I have to do that, or you know, this real horse trading, scorecard keeping, toing and froing. Oh, I'll do these chores, you do those chores, or you bring in the money, I'll look after the kids, or you know, these agreements that we have that are very trying to keep the balance, trying to keep the peace. And that's one of the most erosive things to a relationship, really, isn't it? And the fear being that it will get out of balance, and someone will be in the relationship will be gaining heaps and the other will be losing heaps. So that's not a functional, loving relationship anyway. So it's not actually possible to have a functional relationship and need to keep a scorecard in the first place, and to be worried that the scorecard's going to get out of balance.
Yeah, it does cause oscillation. It looks smooth on the surface, but what you notice is you find yourself in some sort of conflict, and then you solve that problem, you think, and then you sail for a little while, and then you're in another conflict together. And everyone would say to you, well, that's just normal, you know, that's just relationships for you. But we can have a much higher level experience, shared experience together than this oscillation from conflict to smooth, you know, and it can be far, far richer than that. So there's a cost to unconsciously keeping a scorecard and sort of knowing where am I at in relation to my partner as far as what's fair here. You know, are we sharing the load, or am I kind of doing a bit more here in whatever way than he or she is? And you know, that takes a lot of energy, and it also steals our focus away from being authentic and showing up, not needing anything from that person, because we're sourcing what we need from ourselves. And we're taking responsibility for things like our own happiness.
Yeah.
You know, I can be happy. It's like that's up to me. That's not for my partner to provide me with happiness. That's neediness, you know? And so when we behave in that way, when we show up in that way, we're actually not taking responsibility for ourselves. And it's one of those things that it's kind of unspoken often, but you can sense it, and it's not attractive.
No.
So it's one of those things that erodes our polarity in our relationship that would otherwise bring desire and passion.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, it really isn't that hard to create and maintain a functional relationship. If there's a lot of internal management or anything going on in your relationship, that's a sign that you're not in that functional relationship, that things that are being tallied up, if you like, in some way, shape or form. And we're just sort of making sure, am I okay here? Hey, if you're in the relationship that's functional, you're always okay. Doesn't matter what's going on. And there's going to be ebbs and flows with everything, with the money, with the energy, with the love, with the attention. And if you're happy with that, and happy with whatever is going on, your relationship has far more chance of becoming, one of those most expansive, beautiful, brilliant things that you've ever lived in your life. And, you can look for these clues in different things. As I mentioned a few things there, because how you do one thing is how you do everything. So how do you guys handle your money situation? Right. And again, it doesn't need to be a scorecard side of things. Or how do you guys manage life decisions? Like, is it something that's all very one-sided, or you just keep going with your spouse because it's just easier to keep the peace? Or you feel like your spouse doesn't want to make any decisions, so you're the one that's always on the spot to do that, So start to have a little conscious look around. How are we doing things? And is it something that we've sort of just fallen into by default, and thereby finding ourselves riding that wave of oscillation? 1 minute everything's fantastic and, oh yeah, we're good now. Next minute it's like 2 steps forward, 3 steps backwards, and let's go again. We've got to repair it. When's Valentine's Day? Well, from tomorrow. It'll be 364 days away, so you got a long time to wait. Hopefully their birthday will be just around the corner or something like that. But just a few things to think about and to consider in terms of your relationship. And hey, where you are in the world, or when you're watching this, it might not be Valentine's Day anymore. Totally fine, but it all applies. So just something to consider.
Yeah, and also maybe even when you're considering these things, what are those things that I haven't done for a long time that I used to love? When we came together, what was my take on certain things, and what was the perspective I held in relation to stuff about in my life, in the world? What was I drawn to? What was I engaged in, and what did I really enjoy? And just start to look at some of the things that you maybe have been putting aside for a long time even, that you could start to blow the dust off and start to re-engage with.
Yeah.
And, and by way of taking responsibility for your own happiness in your life, but also stepping into the fuller expression and experience of, for yourself, and showing up in your relationship as somebody who's willing to do that for you. And the side effect is that it has a huge impact on the quality and the caliber of your relationship, and actually gives it the opportunity to continue to expand and deepen over time.
Yeah, that's so true. So true. And so there's always plenty to explore.
Yeah.
And we do leave a lot of things behind, don't we?
We do. Yeah.
Anyway, so that's something to think about for the next little while, and we'll be back with more information about how to become a functional couple. And I don't mean functional as in, we're just getting along, but I mean that juicy, expansive, fun, spontaneous, if you like, but conscious in our relationship.
Yeah.
How do we do that? So that's what we will be continuing to share. So like and subscribe, and we will see you on the next one.
See you then.